The other bad news is I didn't like the lesson that's in your book, so put it down. And the good news is we'll be done quick. So if you want to take a nap, we'll wake you up in just a few minutes, all right? All right, so, I went in a completely different direction because as I was telling Sister Robin this morning that the lesson was on sacrifices and stuff like that, and it just wasn't clicking in my little Forrest Gump head, I didn't understand that stuff. So I went with a completely different direction. So I'm going to need y'all's help with this, if you will. Give me a couple of head nods, a couple of amens. If you want to run the pews, that'll be cool too. But what I was thinking about was, in movies and TV shows, there's always the little small characters, little bit roles and stuff like that, maybe like a bus driver, a school teacher, or something like that. Maybe they got a couple of little lines in there, but it doesn't really matter to the story or anything like that. And I was thinking that, the Bible has people like that also, except the difference with the Bible is that those little bit roles, those little small people turn out to be big people in the end. And I'm going to ask you a question. Think about this, because I'm going to go first, but think about this. Name a small character that is still extremely pertinent to today. And I'll start off with the thief on the cross. What, 2, 3 lines? Still a huge impact today. Anybody else? There you go. Anybody else? I know another good one. Jabez? Jabez. Only thing that was a prayer. Still alive today. Anybody else? Work with me here. There's my other one right there. That was only about 4 or 5 verses, but it's still huge today. Anybody else? Woman at the well. Very good. There you go. See that? Who? That's one of my other ones too. Very good. Me and you, baby, we're kinfolk. We're kindred spirits. So, all right, all these are really good, but I picked a very obscure one and an off-color one. I picked Barabbas. And I'll get to my point later on. So we will back up to, and since it is getting pretty close to Christmas time, not Christmas, Easter, edit that out. So we'll just back up just to make this last a little longer. So we all know the story. Jesus goes into town. Oh, speaking of that, let me back up. So speaking of bit parts, I once read a Max Lucado book that had spent an entire chapter talking about the man who, remember when the disciples went into town and got the donkey for Jesus to ride into town in? Spent an entire chapter on that man right there, his faith and all that stuff, and I thought that was kind of cool. So I digress. All right, so we'll go back. Don't look at me like that. So Jesus rides into town, and everybody's cheering and all that stuff, and he goes about doing all of his Jesus stuff, his teachings, his healings and stuff like that, and he ruffles the feathers of the church elders, enough so that they go to Pilate and say that he's been blaspheming, and they want Pilate to talk to him. So, of course, Pilate takes him in, gives him a lot of questions and stuff like that, and Pilate can find absolutely nothing wrong with him because there is nothing wrong with him. So he goes back, and he's thinking that, if he goes back and sets Jesus free because he finds him innocent, that there's going to be a big uprising, and he didn't want that to happen under his rule because that would look bad to his leaders. So they had that rule in back then that was for the Passover, where they would, in honor of the Passover, they would release a prisoner. So he's thinking, okay, who's the worst guy we got? So he's thinking Barabbas. And undoubtedly, Barabbas is a pretty bad guy because, we've got a lot of bad stuff that goes on around here. I don't know any of their names, but it seemed like everybody knew Barabbas. He was that bad. And he was mentioned in all 4 chapters of the Gospel. So he's thinking, I'm going to put Barabbas up there. So he goes to the church leaders and tells them, said, all right, I'm going to give you a choice. You can either take Jesus or you can take Barabbas. And they urged the crowd to, all the church leaders urged the crowd to go with Barabbas. And where's my thing at? And this is it. The governor said to them, which of the two do you wish with me to set free for you? And they said, Barabbas. So that's all my text for today. Which, while I'm reading this, I'm thinking that, you know, I never really noticed this before because, like I said, I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but have you ever noticed that Barabbas is us? It is the redemption story. Because you're talking about a man who was evil. He was considered a murderer, a thief, just all kinds of bad stuff. And and all of a sudden, he's going to go get probably crucified or whatever, but all of a sudden, Jesus takes his place. And that's just like we were back in the day. Whenever we were first saved, we were not good people. We might not have murdered anybody. We might not have stolen anything, but, you know, we weren't good people, but Jesus took our place. And it never really hit me. Has anybody y'all ever noticed that before? It was meant to be. I like her. She talks. So, I never really noticed that, but yeah, that's why I picked Barabbas, because he basically is us, because, you know, he was an evil man and Jesus took his place and he didn't get what he deserved. He deserved death, most definitely, but nah, he got to go home and be with his family that night. True, true. Yeah, that is one thing I pray about every morning, that, you know, I'm not an overall bad person, but there is still sin in my life. I do stuff. I lose my I lose my temper. You know, I'm ugly to people sometimes. I'm you know, mean to my wife sometimes. I strike that. I don't want to hear that. I don't want her knowing that. So, and you know, I probably wasn't the best father in the world whenever my kids were growing up, but you never know. But hopefully I'm forgiven for all of it. And that's one part. And the other part that I was wanting to bring out is that the crowd faced with a choice of Barabbas and Jesus. They picked Barabbas. And you know what? That's the way we are today. I think a lot of this, especially, I'm not going to say the whole world, but the United States has picked Barabbas. They don't pick Jesus anymore. Because I was thinking, you know, whenever I was studying this lesson, all this stuff, and I'm only 56 years old, but there's been a ton of stuff that's changed since I was a kid. I mean, you know, well, I was thinking that, you know, back in the day, like on sitcoms and movies, you didn't see people, husband and wife sleeping in the same bed. Now you do. You see all kinds of stuff. You didn't hear people curse on TV whenever I was growing up. Boy, they do now. It's not even leaped out. They don't do none of that stuff. And look at all the stuff that we take and say it's okay now. Good Lord, there's men and women that will fight you to have an abortion. And that's just completely unheard of to me. And I know we were a little bit on the mean side when we were growing up, but if we found out you were a homosexual, we'd let you have it because we didn't think that was right. And anybody else think of anything that's changed? It's because, Manny, what about you? You're a little bit older than me. It's just crazy how things, and you know, now they're trying to, and legalizing marijuana in most states. I mean, I think that is just, to me, that's crazy. I mean, it's one thing to have alcohol legalized and all that, but, you know, you can't even test for marijuana. If somebody's stoned out of their mind driving down the road, you can't even give them a ticket. To me, that's crazy. At least in alcohol, you can give them a breathalyzer and get them off the road. Yeah. And to me, you know, that's mine and your fault. Because they opened the stores on Sunday, because I remember that. Because it was It was a quick check because I grew up in Oakboro. A quick check opening on Sunday, and we thought the whole place was going to hell. But we went to the store on Sunday and kept them open. So that's partly our fault too, because everybody here is probably going to go out to a restaurant or go out shopping as soon as we get done, and you keep, well, you're messing me up here, woman. So yeah, it's partly our fault because we go to the stores and we keep them open. So, anybody else? Because that's all I got, baby. That is absolutely correct. The amount of breweries that's opening is just astronomical because you can go anywhere in 5 minutes. You can go to a brewery from my house. They're everywhere. Matter of fact, a friend of mine that I used to work with, he quit work to open one, and he's very successful. So, yeah, beer joints. Yeah, it's cool. Yes. Right. Yeah. Yeah, we cover it up with fancy words nowadays. Yeah, that's all it is. Mm-hmm. Yeah, everything has been relabeled. I mean, I hate to say it, but you know, we used to call people fat, now they're overweight. You know, we used to call people ugly, now they're just challenged, I guess. I didn't say that. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, nothing's changed. That's right. That is, that's correct. Absolutely correct. Yeah, I'm okay with that. Right, the scapegoat. Yeah, right. Yeah, you are absolutely correct. Because I'm, you know, just walking through the store and listening to how parents talk to their kids now, it is unreal. Just cussing them up and down and threatening them and stuff. I just like, you know, I can't believe that. Because I remember my mom said that she got me in a grocery store one time. I was acting up, and she grabbed me and spanked me. So the next thing you know, she was going around in circles. She said, "That's the last time I ever spanked you in the store," because I was screaming and she was spanking me as I went around in circles. But I digress. But yeah, I remember Philip told me one time that all the guys that he works with knew that there was a standard that they had to talk like whenever they walked into his office because he was a preacher. And they didn't talk that way whenever they were around him. And, you know, nowadays people don't care anymore. They'll talk about you just however they want to. Just the filth that I hear at work every day, it's just unreal. I got one buddy, and he's a good friend of mine, but he can't say one sentence without a cuss word in it. I mean, he'll start them off with a cuss word. And, you know, I'll try to live as good as I can around him, but, man, he drags me down. You know, I'm like, I can't. How do you even talk to your kids or your mama like that? I mean, you know, really. But yeah. Well, I'm glad you said that because that just reminded me that I missed one complete part. Is that all right? So whenever the crowd picked Barabbas, now you know good and well that not the entire group was for Barabbas. There was probably some people that was wanting to pick Jesus, but they would not dare say a word, right? Well, that's us too. Have we sat back and watched all this stuff happen? Did we sit back and watch them take prayer out of schools? We done it. We've all sat back and done nothing. Do we have, you know, whenever I was growing up, it seemed like every president that we had a pastor that he consulted with. Most of the time it was Billy Graham, but they always had a pastor that they consulted with. Not anymore. They don't even mention it. And we just sit back and watch it happen. But you got to think to yourself, what can we do? I don't know. I don't know the answer to this. I'm just throwing it out there. What can we do to change it except tell more people about Jesus and all? I mean, not like we're going to fix the world's problems here today, but what else can we do? Crystal. It can. It can. Right. And I mean, I hate to say it, but I mean, look around. We're not the youngest people in here. We don't have this. It's got to be us because there's no more young people basically involved in church much. It's us. So. Right. There you go. We just got to build it. So. Right, and that exploded. Yeah. And the same thing for our Sunday morning kids program. We only started with like 1 or 2 kids, and it's gotten bigger and bigger. And I mean, I'm extremely happy with that because, you know, like I said, it's us. after us, I mean, there's a big gap. Like I was telling all them, I'm the only person that, I can't say that. You know, my kids don't go to church. And, you know, I brought them up in church. They know all about everything, but they don't go to church. Yeah, they still can. So, you know, it's just. Yeah. We just got to get those kids in church. That's it right there. When you've done all you can do to stand, stand. All right, that's all I got today. Y'all go about do your business. Yeah, fantastic. And I'll. Right. And I'm telling you what, children's church is so important because, you know, thinking back, me and Sister Robin were just talking about this morning is that, you know, I still remember everything about my children's church whenever I was growing up. The little felt boards with the little men stuck on there, and that was awesome. And let me run one test that I asked her. I said, all right, if I start singing deep and wide, what are y'all going to do? Do it. Deep. I mean, you know, this stuff sticks with you for your life. So that's why it's so important, because it does stick with you your entire life. So let's make things happen. All right? Ready? Break. All right, thank you for being here this morning. Thank you for the support. It's actually a fantastic morning so far. I like this. So